Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you for joining me today. Happy New Year to all, and I really appreciate you logging in. Today is part of our Live Well, Stay Healthy Wellness webinar series brought to you by the Department of Family and Community Health Sciences here with Rutgers Cooperative Extension. My name is Rachel Tanzi. I will serve as both your host and your presenter today on the topic of eating well and spending less. So as we continue through, I did just want to make note that as participants, you're all muted and your videos are blocked during the webinar, but any questions you have, you can put in the chat or the Q&A box and I can see those through out. And we will get to any presentation questions at the end. This webinar is also being recorded. And if you do have any questions, please do keep any private information private and that we don't share that with the group. So if you're not familiar, Rutgers Cooperative Extension is part of a few different entities. We obviously share a partnership between the university and the state of New Jersey, the county boards of chosen commissioners, and the New Jersey Institute of Food and Agriculture, USDA. We have three departments within RCE, and that's Agriculture and Natural Resources, which also encompasses our Marine Sciences Department, our 4-H Youth Development Department, and then there's Family and Community Health Sciences, which is the department that I am with, where we do nutrition, health, and wellness programs throughout the state and beyond. And if you are looking for any additional information, our website is listed there as well. RCE is an affirmative action, equal opportunity employer. And we can move on. So eating well and spending less. What does that really mean? A balanced diet on a balanced budget. Oftentimes you really see eating well as kind of being an expensive option. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And we'll go through that in a little bit. But, there's really different ways that we can eat healthfully and happily and tastefully on a very balanced budget. So getting the proper nutrition and nourishment that we need really is important, especially at a price you can afford, because if we're really stressing out about the budget and the cost of things, that actually causes stress to our bodies as well, which isn't really healthy for us. So we're really looking, as the new year starts, we're always looking to sort of revamp things, maybe look at new ways we can be healthier. And that is not only health with our physical being, but even our wealth and our health as it relates to our budgeting and things like that. So today we're going to specifically talk about our food and our shopping on a budget, but even when it comes to other finances as well, that also is a type of health that we need to make sure that we're keeping in check. So moving on. Foods obviously vary greatly, whether it be cost, in their flavor, in their nutritional value, and clearly in convenience. We often pay a little bit more for certain foods when it comes to convenience. It's much easier, by all means, if you're out and about and you're running past a fast food place and you quickly just grab a meal for $5-6, that's no problem. It's quick and convenient. But the cost is often higher because that same $5 or $6, if you were to purchase those foods and maybe, ultimately, if you were just say a burger and some potatoes and buns and a salad, would ultimately cost a little bit more at the food store, but you're going to get more than one meal out of it. So you can very much look at it that way, that sometimes I'm not saying convenience isn't worth it. That might be worth it. You're in a rush. There's no way that you're going to be able to get a meal prepared at home. But if you're looking for healthful options, always try, if you're at some sort of fast food establishment, to make sure you're picking some of those healthier options that have a little bit more nutritional value, a little more bang for your buck, not only cost, but also for the nutritional value. Because if you think about it, I often say this, that this is our vehicle. And if we were to put, let's say, unhealthy liquid like a soda or something into our car and expect it to run, that isn't going to happen, because your vehicle, your car, needs the proper nourishment or the proper fuel in order to run properly. Same with this vehicle, same with our bodies. We need the proper fuel and nourishment to run properly. Not to say that we can't get away with some of those little, party habits and, unhealthy options periodically, but overall, we really do need to look at the nutritional value of our food and hope that we are picking more of those healthier options on a more regular basis. So healthy foods can be appealing and can be inexpensive. You just have to look for the options, whether they be on sale or what you're going to prepare and maybe get a little more longevity. You're buying a bag of potatoes, let's say, or a bag of carrots, and how you're going to purchase those in order to prepare maybe 2, 3, 4 meals out of that same bag, as opposed to just running into a quick restaurant or something and just getting one meal for that $5. That same bag of carrots that cost you $3 might get you worth 3 meals, something like that. So honestly, the today's cost of living is pretty high, and we can make, eating right and healthy, honestly, it can be a true challenge. But we really want to look at a few key, kind of factors here. Everyone needs the proper nutrition. We all do. We are all the same. We need the proper nutrition for good physical health, good mental health, being productive in our workday, whether it be at home doing tasks or actually at an established work environment, play, whether you're doing things like, just having fun and extracurricular activities, you need to have the proper nutrition to get through that day, as well as just an overall sense of well-being. These all things, all four of these items that I listed here are really key in making sure you're well-rounded and having that holistic approach to your proper health and nutrition. So, but even on a budget, we can really get some low cost, enjoyable meals. We can have some cost effective food shopping and a tasty, healthy diet from that. So there are definitely different ways, you can look at items in the food store that maybe are on sale that day. Maybe you create a list, you create a budget, but you have a little bit of leeway. Oh, I wanted, let's say, broccoli, but cauliflower was on sale. So then you pick that one for that week. Or vice versa, you're looking for chicken, but yet, turkey was on sale. So you're going to pick that one instead. Having a little bit of, some flexibility, but staying still within our budget is also key as well. Balanced lifestyle is a combination of variety, moderation, proportion, and activity. So really having different foods provides different nutrients. So when it comes to fruits and vegetables, we often say to eat a rainbow. Eating a rainbow meaning having foods from all the colors of the rainbow and having different foods within that color group. So we want to make sure that we're not just eating the same green vegetables all the time. If you're eating broccoli all the time, you're getting great nutrients. However, it's not the same nutrients, let's say, as spinach or some other green vegetable. You want to make sure that you're getting different vegetables within each group and within each color family, both vegetables and fruits when it comes to our variety of rainbow foods. So we want to make sure the variety is often, changed up. You have a little bit more nutrients from one day, a little bit different nutrients from the next day, vice versa. Things that we want to keep in moderation would be our fats, those added fats. There are some healthy fats. That's not a problem. We can have some unsaturated fats, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. Those are our healthy fats. But we have saturated fats or like trans fatty acids. Those are not good for us. Those are just basically, they can wreak havoc on our system and not really do our bodies any good. You're not helping yourself by having those foods. Not to say we don't have them periodically. So again, everything in moderation. But things that are high in saturated fats, cholesterol, salt or sodium, even added sugars and calories that have no nutritional value. So oftentimes that's coined like empty calories. So all of the calories that we're ingesting really should be doing our body good. We really should be having a purpose to using those nutrients and being useful in our body. Making sure you're keeping things in proportion, your calories balanced with enough healthy foods. It's one thing to just say, oh, I'm keeping my calories low. Well, those no nutritional value calories low is still no nutritional value. So making sure we're having calories that have nutritional value in proportion to our healthy foods is what's important as well. Having activity as well. So balancing your food and your physical activity, and whether you're someone who's like an avid gym goer or runner or, even walking and doing things like that, that's great. If you're really not and you're looking to start that, it might be a huge jump for you to go from like a sedentary lifestyle to 2 hours at the gym every day. That might be too big. We're looking for small changes that help you in the long run. So maybe it's just taking a 10 to 20 minute walk each day and getting physically active that way. Maybe it's, rainy and you can't get outside and you do some things around the house, and you can even do seated exercises and doing, different things that you can for your body to be healthier and encourage that movement. But about every hour, we should be getting up. If you're, in a workspace, or you're working on a task at home, or you're just sitting kind of like reading a book, doing nothing, but about every hour, you should be getting up and moving for 3 to 5 minutes. This is important for our bodies to not get sort of in that stagnant kind of stiff space that we often get, but also it helps keep everything sort of charged. It keeps the digestive tracts flowing, it keeps your respiratory rate good, it keeps your body moving, and that's what we really need. We are not made to just sit and do things like at hours on end. We need to have that activity and get up and move around about every hour, 3 to 5 minutes. So what is it that I'm telling you to choose? Well, tips on choosing different foods for your nourishment and cost savings really are based on your needs and your budget and your likes and dislikes. However, there are definitely ways that you can do this without sacrificing taste and health. So if you're looking at this picture here, about half of that plate is fruits and vegetables. So at any given meal, let's say breakfast, lunch, dinner, even a snack, half of your plate should be a fruit or a vegetable. And then the other half should be roughly maybe, a third protein and 2/3 grains. And when we say grains, we're saying whole grains at least half of the time. So, instead of white bread, we're looking for whole grain bread, and making a sandwich out of that and having that as your grain for that meal. Your protein should be a lean protein. We're not looking for all that extra saturated fat. We want to have lean proteins in our diet to help our body and our muscles and all the good nourishment that we need stay healthy. And then we have a dairy item. So maybe low fat cheeses, or skim or 1% milks. Again, low fat yogurts, and all those types of good, healthy dairy options for you as well. So that's kind of like a meal in a nutshell, this little picture here. And that's sort of how your plate should look, keeping in mind that we're looking for the healthy options. And again, we know everything in moderation. So there might be something that needed to be cooked in, a little butter. You sauteed something in a little butter. Butter is not the greatest thing for us, but a little bit once in a while is not the worst part of it. So here's just a little simple plan based on a 2,000 calorie diet, basically for the average adult. We should have about 2 cups of fruits, whole fruits each day. So we're really looking at, let's say a whole apple as opposed to apple juice, because really that's straining out all of that good fiber and nutrition. And really you're just then drinking the sugar from the juice. So we're looking at whole fruits that can either be fresh, frozen, or canned. So that's one way you can look at cost savings. Um, let's say it's something you love and they're just not in season. For instance, let's say strawberries. Okay, so strawberries are wonderful in season, especially here in New Jersey. When they're in season, they can be really low cost and they are wonderfully tasty and they give you lots of great nutritional value. We can go to the store and buy them out of season, but you do see when the prices go up because they're out of season. They're shipping them in. They're probably not quite as tasty because they have to ship them in and they probably are not even quite ripe yet, or they've been forced in some sort of greenhouse to turn ripe. However, if you're using those strawberries, let's say you make oatmeal every morning and you love to have berries in your oatmeal. Buying frozen strawberries are going to not only save you some money because they're frozen, but also will still give you that same nutritional value because they are frozen. Now, it might change a little bit of the quality because they go from frozen and by the time you defrost them, it's not quite the same as eating a fresh whole fruit from the store. However, you'll have cost savings and you'll still get great nutritional value. And if you're adding it to something like oatmeal, they sort of cook a little bit in that warmth of the oatmeal and they kind of break down anyway. So you'll still get all that flavor. So that's one way. And again, if you're looking at something canned, whether it be fruit, and we're trying to look at things canned in water or 100% fruit juice, try to avoid high fructose corn syrups or any syrups if you're buying canned fruits. But also if you're buying canned vegetables or frozen vegetables, when they're canned, you're looking for low sodium or no sodium packed in water or something of that sort so that you're getting better nutritional value. Things that are frozen, I didn't say this before, are frozen at peak season. So for instance, I always use this example, peas. If you look at any given time, I mean, I don't even know how quickly the window is. It's like a couple weeks, I think in like June, that you might find peas on the shelf fresh in the food store. It's because their lifespan or their shelf life is so short that it's better to buy peas off season that are frozen because they are frozen at peak season and they're flash frozen. So they have that high nutritional value. They have all the wonderful, they hold their integrity really well. So if you're throwing them into a soup or a casserole or just making them as a side dish, they really hold that nice texture to them. And that is why buying them frozen is a little bit better for you because if you try to buy them off season, first of all, it's probably very difficult to find in the food store, number one, but it's also going to save you a little bit in cost because they are frozen. So the same would go with for vegetables, fruits, and then as I mentioned earlier, when we're talking about our grains, we're looking for whole grains at least half of the time. I mean, the more the better. If you get whole grains 100% of the time, wonderful. But if you can use whole grains at least half of the times you're eating grains, that would be the best option to give you a better nutritional value and have all that nourishment from those grains. There are certain things when they're not whole grains that kind of get stripped out and through the processing of our grains, that is why whole grained items are healthier and more nutritious for us. When it comes to protein, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking for lean proteins. We're looking to encourage more seafood and finfish in our diets. It also doesn't have to be an animal protein. It could be beans or peas or lentils, seeds and nuts, soy products are all great options for protein as well. And then, as I mentioned, dairy, about 3 cups of dairy a day, whether it be yogurt or a low-fat cheese or low-fat milk. These are all things that help us have a good, nutritious, healthy diet based on about a 2,000 calorie diet. Everybody's calories might be slightly different, but this is average is 2,000 calories. So I said this earlier, our grain should be at least half whole grains. But just to give you a for instance, we're saying to having about 6 ounces a day. One slice of bread is essentially 1 ounce. So if you had a sandwich, that's 2 ounces. So that would be 2 of your 6 ounces for the day. Whether maybe like a bran flake or something, or ready to eat cereal, 1 cup would be 1 ounce. And then something like cooked cereals or rices and pastas, about half a cup is considered 1 ounce. So if you were to make, let's say, some sort of pasta for the night and you had a full cup, that's 2 of your servings. Maybe you had, oatmeal for breakfast. Maybe you had a sandwich for lunch. So you're already up for almost your 6 ounces. And I'm sure there's ways to calculate in a little bit more. Maybe you had pretzels as a snack and now there's your 6 ounces for the day. So our whole grains, for example, as I was mentioning, our whole wheat breads and even like brown rice is necessary for certain nutrients like vitamin B and minerals and fiber. These keep all of our digestive tracts working and in order. And without, the way our bodies work, it's like when one track and one system is in flux, it kind of affects the other one. So if you're having sort of some digestive issues, you sort of start feeling crummy overall. So it's really important to make sure that you're keeping everything in check and getting the right nutrition for all of your systems. Eating whole grains as part of a healthy diet really can help reduce the risk of certain heart disease and coronary artery diseases. So it's important to make sure we're having those whole grains. Fiber, as I mentioned, really important for healthy digestion. And it's really not a problem if you shop at the store to save a little bit of money to look for like a day old baked good because you're going to eat it that night or in the next day. Most items, if you look at the label, will say best by date. And if it says best by, that means you have a little bit of a window, a couple days or so, to eat the item because that just means it was best by, whether it be the like quality of the item. So let's just say you were buying, whole grain bread to go with your meal for the night. It may have been made yesterday and it was best by that day, but that doesn't mean it's bad for today, especially when it comes to something like bread. Put that, warm that up for a couple seconds and it gets all soft all over again. So even if it feels a little bit crunchy. So that's another, option to save some dollars is picking some of the day old baked goods. So our vegetables, we were saying about 2.5 cups a day. and making sure we're having dark green vegetables, orange vegetables, things like beans and peas also are great. But if you're having those items like the beans or peas or even your soy products and you're counting them as a vegetable for the day, they should not count also as a protein. So it's one or the other. If you're having, let's say, soy products as your protein, then it doesn't count as your vegetable. So that's where, it has to offset the other. Knowing that about 1 cup of raw, cooked, or juiced vegetables is 1 cup essentially of serving. So we're saying 2.5 cups for serving. However, let's say you're eating a salad, like a green leafy spinach salad, 2 cups of spinach counts as one of our 1 cup servings. So you can have some maybe 100% juice in the morning with your breakfast, and then you're having, some peas and maybe a big, side peas, carrots, and, maybe some broccoli for your side dish as your lunch. And then you make a big green salad with other fruits and vegetables in there. That also adds up throughout the day to equal that 2.5 cups. Then we have, things that maybe you want to stock up on. Look for sales, read your flyers, check the little circulars for all the stores, because especially if they're canned items, they will last quite a long time. And this is where you can buy maybe the larger bag of frozen vegetables as opposed to just the little small, 1 serving, one family little dinner. You buy the bigger one because you're going to get more bang for your buck. Don't thaw them until you're ready to use them. Also, try store brands. Most of the time, a store brand is owned by some other big conglomerate. So their brand of items is just as good and follows the same procedures for food and, all the regulations. So they often taste just as good otherwise. Including the dark green and orange and even starchy vegetables in your diet, that helps you feel a little full longer because you're going to get a little extra fiber. And then also, it adds, like I mentioned, that little extra nutritional value because you're changing it up between the colors and different items and things like this. But when you do buy your fresh vegetables, really look for them to be in season. When they're in season, they're more plentiful and they're more bountiful in season. So depending on what they are, it's winter time now here. So, having some more of the winter squashes and things, all those wintry, tubular type of vegetables might be the better option to buy fresh because they're in season and they're going to be lower cost. So when it comes to fruit, we sort of mentioned this earlier. 1 cup of raw, frozen, or cooked, canned, or juiced equals 1 cup. So we're looking for 2 cups. But I say that with the caveat of limiting juice, because juice, as I mentioned, an apple, eating a whole apple versus eating or drinking apple juice, even if it's 100% apple juice, it's still all the sugars from the apple, as opposed to you're still getting those sugars when you're eating the apple, but you're also getting the extra protein, the extra fiber and extra, nutritional value from the whole apple. So when I say fruit juice, we're looking for 100% fruit juice, and we do not want it to be an aid or a drink in the label because it has to say 100% fruit juice. Most of the times, if they say fruit drink or fruit, aid, whatever it is, or a punch or something like that, they often have a higher content of sugar. So we're looking for more nutrients and less sugar. That's what we're looking for. Those concentrates are often less expensive, but you do have to read the packaging. A lot of the times the concentrates are really just simply the juices extracted from the water and you're just adding the water back, but you still want to make sure that it's not added sugar in those concentrates. And buy really only what you'll consume before it goes bad. You don't want it to, all of a sudden, just kind of expire or have some sort of, moldy funk sort of going on before you're able to consume it, because then that's also wasteful with not only the food, but your money as well. And the same here goes for having foods that are in season. So when it comes to our dairy products, we're looking for about 3 cups of dairy a day, unless young children ages 2 to 8 need about 2 cups a day. And this is where I just want to make note that you can get calcium from other sources if it's not from milk products, because some people may be lactose intolerant and they don't have really too many milk products in their diet. But also, there's things like dark green leafy vegetables that have calcium in them as well. So there are different sources that you can look into to get extra calcium. And a lot of the times things are even fortified at this point with vitamin D and things like that. So if you are someone who does enjoy and can have milk products, looking at about 1 cup of milk or yogurt to be part of your 3 cups for the day. But keep in mind that hard cheeses like a cheddar cheese, about 1.5 ounces is considered one of those cups. So it's not a huge 8 ounce piece of cheese. It's 1.5 ounces that's considered one of those 1 cup servings. So we just want to keep that in mind, that if you're having cheese and you're having maybe a cup of milk or you have yogurt, you only need about 3 cups per day to get the nutrition that we need there. Buying milk in large containers is great and probably cost effective if you will consume it all. So keep that in mind. If not, there's ways to maybe bake it into a recipe, or I mean, you could even try freezing it, but then it might, be a little bit different as you defrost it afterwards. But so I don't really love that idea, but you can even buy dried milk, and using non-fat dried milk actually costs less and is very useful in cooking, or even if you just want it as a drink. So if you're, say, like making a casserole or a soup or something like that, and you just add a little bit of that the non-fat dried milk, it actually just adds nutritional value, and rarely does it change the taste, the texture, or anything about the recipe. If you're adding it into like a soup, a casserole, or something of the sort, it just adds added calcium, which is really what we're looking to get the nutritional value. So that's important to know. And things like low fat or skim milk have the same nutrients as whole milk. So it just has less fat. And that's the fat that is not the healthiest for us. So we want to have the low fat or skim options if you're drinking milk. And a way to definitely save money is if you're buying hard cheeses, you buy like the big block and grate it yourself, or slice it yourself and cut it up as you need it. You will save money that way. And things like cottage cheese or cheddar cheese, they essentially have a little extra protein in there as opposed to, some of the other cheeses that are out. So you want to read the labels, you want to know what you're purchasing and know whether or not it's cost effective to buy it one way versus the other. Our protein, we're looking at about 5.5 ounces per day. And just to give you a reference, let's say you were to have steak that night, a lean cut of, meat, red meat, or even poultry, about the size of a deck of cards is considered 3 ounces. So if you're going out for a meal at a restaurant, you're probably getting more than that. But just know that 1 ounce is equivalent to 1 ounce of meat, for whether it comes to meat, poultry, or fish. One egg is also considered 1 ounce, and then something like 1 tablespoon of peanut butter or other nut butters is considered 1 ounce, or half an ounce of nuts and seed is also like equivalent to that 1 ounce. So we're talking 5.5 ounces for the whole day. But you also need to keep in mind some of these little adjustments, like a half a cup of cooked beans or tofu is considered one of these 1 ounce servings of our protein. So again, I mentioned earlier, if you're counting beans, peas, or soybean products as your protein group, then they shall not count as your vegetable group. So you have to kind of know which one you're having that day. Unfortunately, meats and proteins can be a little costly sometimes, so looking for some low-cost cuts can be effective. If you look for something with a bone, a little extra grizzle or fat, that can lower the cost of meat per pound, but then just make sure you cut off that grizzle or fat before cooking so it doesn't absorb into the meat and get that extra saturated fat. The bone, obviously, it's per pound, so you're not going to eat the bone, but it does help you save when it comes to costs. And if it's, you're looking at the whole thing saying, oh, I'm not even going to eat that much anyway, so let me buy the lower cost cut of meat. Oftentimes, sometimes cuts of meat that take longer to cook are often a little bit cheaper as well. So if it's something where especially in the wintertime, I use my crock pot all the time. So, you're able to sort of cook it low and slow for a long time. It helps break down those proteins, and then they get softer and they're easier to eat that way. So larger cuts of meat and even whole chickens, when they're on sale, you can either cut them up and save them proportionally in your freezer for later, or you can like cook the whole chicken and then have a couple meals out of it. And then, maybe make soup or something like that. So you get good bang for your buck. Poultry and fish often contain less fat and calories than red meat, so that's something you consider. Sometimes it's a healthier option there. And frozen and canned fish often cost less than fresh as well. And there's many different ways. We used to do things here where we would take canned salmon and make sort of like a crab cake out of it with canned salmon and be able to cook them up and they would taste delicious. And it would be a more cost effective way than saying buying crab to make, a fancier type of meal. And that is a delicious way to get some of your seafood in your diet and raise a lot of those omega-3s that we're looking for our healthy heart and healthy brain function. As I mentioned, a whole chicken can be more cost effective, but also knowing that if you were to say, oh, well, I just need the thighs and the drumsticks, it's still more cost effective to purchase the whole chicken than to just buy those parts and then figure out something to do with the other parts that you're not using. Maybe cook them up and save them, like I said, for a casserole or a soup, or cut it up ahead of time and just freeze those parts raw and then use them when you need them. And trying low cost options instead of meat proteins, as like some of our plant proteins like beans and peas and lentils, is a great alternative also. So planning nutritious meals that really fit your budget, these are the things that we really want you to keep in mind. Keeping in mind the major food groups that we need to have in our diet to have a nutritious overall healthy body, healthy being, and maximizing the amount of money that you can spend on food. Really knowing what your budget is. I mean, and if you don't know, maybe sort of tally up where you've added and gone food shopping for the last couple of weeks. Maybe you want to do it over the course of a couple of months and multiply it out for the year, and then figure out how much you've been able to, get away with. Or maybe there's ways you can be a little bit more cost effective. Maybe you want to try new healthier options for snacks. I mean, we all snack, so it's not always just about the main meals, but maybe you want to try a new way to make the snacks at home and then portion them out into little bags or something for yourself to quick grab. Sometimes it's cheaper to even buy the larger bag of something instead of the individual serving bags, because you're getting more bang for your buck that way as well. So knowing your budget and knowing where you can kind of massage the numbers a little bit is also good. And especially, like I said, I will buy one chicken, cook it up, we'll eat, portion of it tonight, and then I will make the next day, I might make like a chicken salad for lunch out of the last little bits, and then I'll make soup out of the whole carcass the third day, so it ends up being a really long use of that one chicken, as opposed to just buying chicken for the night and then that's it. So there's different ways that everybody kind of creates new ideas and has different ways to maximize the budget. So planning ahead is obviously always key. Planning a menu with your family. Maybe one night you have one kid home planning, for three of you or two of you or all five of you or however many. Maybe it's, something where you're like, that's just, I'm going to be home alone that night. I'll just eat leftovers. So I don't really have to plan a meal, but I want to plan to have leftovers for the meal. Determining what food you really need on your shopping list. There's plenty. We use in our family, we use like an app that basically anybody can get into and adjust the list. So we know, as somebody finished the milk, they put milk on the list. And that way, whoever goes food shopping can all see what items are on that list. But always, like I said earlier, keep room for some flexibility, maybe some changes that you might need to sort of be a little partial to sales and things like that. Changing menus to take advantage of weekly specials is very much a key. Sometimes you don't even know until you go into the store, like, oh, pork chops are on sale. So I was going in to buy chicken, but I decided that pork chops are on sale and that's what we're having tonight for dinner instead. Clipping coupons, or now there is plenty of ways that you can get some cost savings in the stores, whether it be a physical coupon itself, or sometimes on the phones now, there's different ways to have some cost savings as well, different apps and things that you're able to have a coupon cost. Using foods that are in season, I mentioned this a few times, they'll always be fresher and cheaper that way. So preparing that shopping list only the things that you need and refer to your meal plan. You've made a meal plan for the week or maybe 2 weeks, and you want to refer to the things you need. You don't want to have to go buy all the spices when you know you have 90% of them. You don't want to buy, an item that's already in your pantry and really probably should be used before it goes bad and go purchase another one. Now, at some point, you probably restock your pantry, but go through the items you probably already have. Try to, in your refrigerator and your pantry, put the older things towards the front and then replenish from behind, because then that way you'll know where you are and you're not just constantly using the fresh new things, because then those old things will go bad and then that's wasteful with your food and your money. Checking what you have, making sure that you go off your list, see what items you might run out of. If you do use that item a lot, maybe you do want to replenish it in the moment. But definitely, definitely, definitely be creative. Explore variety, explore new seasoning and spices, explore new recipes. Maybe there's one recipe you've always made the same way and it's good and you like it and everybody loves it, but maybe there's a new way to spice it up a little bit, give it a little variety. Change maybe the protein, change maybe the vegetables, do something where you're giving it a little bit different spin, and knowing that maybe if you make enough of that item, you get leftovers. So it's not really a leftover if you're planning for it. And a lot of people, some people have like this sort of stigma against the term leftover. It's not really. If you're preparing a meal that serves you twice, that's smart planning. Being price conscious, making sure maybe you are checking the stores for different prices, looking at a list of low cost recipes. These days we can Google anything for, I've even been like, I have chicken and broccoli, and I'll Google a recipe and try to see what can I make with chicken and broccoli. And then make sure I have, like, it could be just shopping in my own pantry, because then I don't have to run to the store. Avoiding junk foods is already, going to help you not only with your health, because those are just empty calories, but they tend to be more expensive too. So if you can come up with new ways to have snacks that are healthy, then it might be a better option for you, not only your budget, but your health as well. Organizing your list. I still love, we use an app for the list, which does this too, but I still love a good handwritten list. I write the items out as they are in the store. So even though, let's just say, I always use this example, like eggs are not dairy, they are protein, but they are typically in the cold dairy section, that I know that that's where it has to be in the list, because you'll be more efficient in your shopping too, that you're not like, oh, I forgot the eggs and I got to run all the way back because now I'm in the, meat section, and eggs are not in the meat section. They are over in like the dairy case. So if you write out your list and organize it, I think that's sort of a given. Most people know that by now. But even like I said, the app that we use, it does that also. It categorizes the items. And note that how much you spend on each item is kind of where you want to be with your budget. You don't want to purchase, let's just say, the expensive orange juice because that's only the one that you've ever had. But maybe if you try the one that's a little bit more cost effective, you might like that too. And again, looking for something like juice, 100% juice. Listing items according to the layout of the store. I just mentioned that. And then estimating your cost before you go to the store, so that you really do try to stay within your limits and your means and not go over your budget if you can. So tips for food shopping: know how to be an effective shopper, save so much time and money. And it's important to even compare your stores. You really want to look for like a clean store, nothing with chaos and, messy sort of shelves. It creates some like anxiety in our own selves when I have to go shopping like that. It's just too much. I don't like that. I want to be in, I want to be efficient, and I want to be out. So sometimes I do have to adjust my list and say, oh, well, like I said, this thing is on sale. Maybe I normally buy this particular jarred item and I'm going to buy this one because it's on sale today, saving me $2. And every little penny counts. Consider the distance too. If this particular store is the farthest away, but it's going to save you quite a bit of money, well, then maybe it's worth it. Or maybe it's not, if it's only going to save you pennies by where you are in association to your home, where you have to travel quite a bit of distance. Before you leave home, make sure you're going to allow enough time. Don't go hungry. We've all been there. You've gone shopping hungry and, you kind of splurge on all the extra things because your mind will definitely play tricks on you and you have to buy all the things. And be prepared. Maybe bring a calculator, maybe using one of the store apps or something like that helps you. Now, a lot of stores even will let you scan items as you're going. So then you'll see your total right up on the little scanner and know that, oh, okay, well, I don't need this bag of chips because number one, they're not healthy for me. And number two, it's going to put me over my budget by $5. So I'm going to stick to my budget. So there's ways to be prepared and use some of those tools. So once you're in the store, check the specials because some of them may not be advertised. They might be manager specials that aren't typically advertised day to day because it's just whatever the special is that day. And also know how to look at your unit pricing. So here's a little example below. You might get, let's say, two items that are the same product but different brands. The total price of one might be $6.35 and the total price of another, let's say, is $5. If you don't look at the weight of the item and how it is priced per ounce, then you don't know which is the better cost. So you're really looking at the price per ounce and how much you're getting. So maybe this item is $6.35, but you're getting 10 ounces out of your 59 cents per ounce. But the other item might only be $5. And maybe you're going to save yourself that $1.35, and that's fine. But sometimes it would be a lot less of the item. So it might be, 8 ounces of food product at, a different cost per ounce. So that's where you have to understand what you're looking at. Your price per ounce tells you, how much it is literally per ounce, how many ounces in the item that you're getting, and then what the total price is. So this is where it's something to consider when you're comparing different products and comparing those items in the store. This is an example of a food label, just to give you a brief review. Reading your labels is important and comparing your brands and packages. If you look over here on the left-hand side, we see this is a pasta product, and we want to make sure that if you see here, whole wheat flour, durum wheat flour, these are the items that you're looking for, whole wheat. Those are the things we were mentioning earlier. We want to make sure we're getting more whole grains. So that's important to read. Then if you look over at this label, when it comes to all these percentages on the right-hand side, we have a rule, a 5-20 rule. Whether it be a healthy item or not healthy item, we say if it's 5% or less, it's low. And if it's 20% or more, it's high. So for instance, we are going to look at, let's say, our sodium level here. For 1 cup is the serving. We know this is a frozen lasagna label. 1 cup of lasagna, you have 37% sodium. So we already know it's high in sodium. It could be, over here, vitamin D, which is a healthier item, it's 0%, so it's low in vitamin D. So see how that would affect, and it changes, depends on obviously the labels. They have made the calorie number quite large for viewing so that we know exactly what we're looking at, but it is important to look at the servings per container, because this could be just, let's say, a box of lasagna, and knowing that only 1 cup of it is your serving. So if you eat the entire thing, you're getting all 280 calories times 4, and you're getting the sodium level of 850 milligrams times 4 because you ate the whole thing. So that's where you have to consider that even something like iron, let's say 8% iron, even if you ate the whole thing, it's now multiplied times 4. So maybe not a bad thing if you're someone who needs more iron, but some of the other things are going to outweigh it. For instance, like the sodium and the cholesterol times 4, you're way over where we should be eating the entire product. But hopefully not everybody eats the entire lasagna. Okay, so avoiding convenience foods. I mentioned this earlier. Convenience foods are really foods that are pre-cooked. They're instant. They're individually packaged, often pre-sweetened or pre-spiced, pre-packaged meals, just going to the freezer section and getting, a pre-packaged meal, or a pre-packaged sandwich of anything else. There's plenty of other things too that you might be buying as convenience as well. Sometimes maybe it's worth the cost for you. There's also a convenience item of like bagged lettuces and salads. It is cheaper and more cost effective to purchase the whole head, but maybe it's in that moment something that you need to just purchase because it's already been washed and cut up and ready to go, and you have like a lot less time to deal with that. But it will often go bad faster as well because it's already been washed and cut. So it needs to be used within a few days. If you were to purchase, let's say, the larger bags of whole romaine lettuce per se, you could just sort of roll them in a couple of paper towels and put them in the refrigerator, and they will last much longer than the pre-cut, pre-washed stuff. So this is where you have to sort of be a little wary of what convenience foods are worth it and which ones are not. So there's always a trade-off, and it really depends on the person as well. So you really can get more food value for your money if you just learn about the nutritional values that we've been talking about, plan healthier meals that fit in your budget, and shop carefully to stay within your food budget. The more you can organize and plan ahead of time, the better you'll be in the long run and the less stress you'll have doing it all. So remember, good nutrition can really be a bargain, and we can be both healthful and cost effective while we are eating.